Okay, hey everybody, welcome to another episode of On the Wrist from Off the Cuffs. I have another cool update for you from the brand Milifortic. Mili for military and Fortic for fortitude. They are an enthusiast-founded factory brand focused on providing high-value, vintage-inspired Homage watches, and they're also a sister brand to Baltony, so that gives you a nice idea in terms of their price point and their high level of quality. Now, in terms of type of watch, this is an everyday watch, some key characteristics, and something which, when you're looking for something that you can wear every day, of course, you're going to be looking for that versatile blend of both sporty and dressy attributes. This is their 36 millimeter climbing watch, the S093, and it's clearly an homage to the Rolex Explorer 1. These go for $185 direct, and I have to say, I'm thoroughly impressed, and I guess at this point I should just expect to be impressed when checking out this brand because they just have not given me a reason not to at this point. So with all that said, let's go ahead, zoom the camera out, get this piece in hand, and take a closer look. Okay, guys, so the devil is in the details here. I mean, look at that end-link contouring. That is beautifully sharp, and honestly the type of end-link contouring and fitment in terms of tolerances you would expect in a watch costing in the upwards of $600 or more. The fact that this is coming for $185 is pretty wild, but at the same time, you know, they didn't have to spend a whole lot of money on design. So if there was existing tooling and machining, then, you know, that probably does save them a little bit of effort, considering there are probably tons of different variations and, you know, within this, whether it be a sister brand or just another, you know, brand that is using these factory parts. So I will say though that they didn't have to choose such nice finishes and tolerance, but they still did. Especially impressive again at this price point at under $200. You do have that nice fixed bezel, which is highly polished and sloped. As you guys can see here, the crystal does slit slightly proud, and it is a flat sapphire with an inner AR coating, so that black dial is going to be rendering nice and black, and you're going to be able to see it regardless of, you know, more challenging lighting conditions. You do also have a crown, which is screw down. It's unsigned, but it kind of suits the theme here. And I'm not sure what Milifortic's, you know, what would they, I don't think they would write their whole thing out. So I don't even know what their signed crown would be. If you guys have any good ideas for the brand and, you know, future iterations, leave it down in the comments below. The movement inside, although you can't see it thanks to this nicely executed sterile screw-in case back, is your Seiko Instruments NH38. And I have to say, I've had mixed results with the NH38, mainly in terms of hacking the movement. It can be quite mushy when I'm pushing the crown back in, not quite as snappy as I hope, you know, but with this, beautiful. I mean, you might have even heard that snap. Listen for it. Ooh. It's just confidence inspiring. I really do appreciate those little details. And again, I've come to forgive the NH38 from, you know, when being used by other brands. Let me give it a quick little wipe over here. When I do end up finding that there is that mushy crown engagement coming off of the hacking, you know, seconds hand. And, you know, typically I've kind of been started preferring the NH35 with a ghost position. But if you can, you know, use the NH38 as a no-date movement without a ghost position and you can execute it at this level, then absolutely use the NH38. In terms of the movement, 41-hour power reserve beats at 3 hertz or a 21,600 vibration per hour sweep in terms of that beat rate. And yeah, it's unfortunate you can't see the movement, but at the same time, it does keep things relatively thin, and it is a, you know, a movement that's on the thicker side. Speaking of thinness, guys, 11.5 millimeters thick, 36 millimeters in diameter, 43.2 millimeters lug to lug. I mean, that is very, very nice. The lug width is 20 millimeters, so really great proportions. For me, if I was going to buy a Rolex Explorer today, I would probably try to get the discontinued 39 millimeter, because for me, that just hit a bit of a sweet spot. But I have to say, like, this 36 millimeter right here, in terms of the way that it's utilizing its proportions and spreading its visual mass and weight, this might just change my mind, especially considering that when it is on the smaller side, it does make it a little bit more versatile in terms of dressing it up versus maybe dressing it down and making it feel more sporty. So, getting to the dial, which of course is going to be in very much Explorer 1 fashion, glossy black dial, applied indices, polished handset. You're getting Swiss Superluminova BGW9 and 100 meters of water resistance or 10 bar. 20 millimeter lug width, like I mentioned before. You're getting this 316L stainless steel oyster style 3-link bracelet, which is brushed with polished sides. Of course, a little spongy for me holding it. And then, a non-Rolex clasp, but this one definitely does the job. And in terms of what you would expect within the price point, this not only does the job, it exceeds expectations, because you're going to get a very nice, solid milled, not just the folding section, but even the upper is milled, nicely beveled. So you're going to have multiple finishes. Let me give it a quick little wipe here, guys. Not signed, but again, what would their signature be if they decided to? Maybe they're looking for your input, but look at how nice that trigger is on the push button. That is really nice executed. The very nice deep luster on this bevel and fantastic brushing there. And then of course you're going to have 3 positions of manual micro adjustment. Also, one thing to note is you're going to be getting, here you go, screwed pin construction. So very nice and quite easy when it comes to sizing this. I will say I would have preferred if they would have had a half link option, just because I kind of, went through that. I prefer not to use the last hole on there, because then if my wrist swells or gets hot, I would like to be able to punch out. But for me to get it actually sized correctly, if I add another link and then move this up to that most inboard position, it actually ends up feeling still a little bit too loose. So that was one of the things, is a bit of a trade-off, in terms of dialing this in. I'm not saying they need to upgrade to a toolless micro adjust clasp at this price point, but I think a half link or 2 would definitely be quite helpful. So with that said, let's actually get this on the wrist and see how it wears. Okay, as you guys can see on my 7.5 inch wrist, this wears really, really nicely. And it's a 36 millimeter, which is typically smaller than I prefer to wear, but I will say it's that 20 millimeter lug width that just gives you a little bit more visual real estate and helps the watch not seem quite too undersized, even on a larger than average wrist. Of course, if I get my wrist a bit too close to the camera lens here, you're going to get a fair amount of perspective distortion. It's going to make the watch seem a lot larger than it already is, while this smaller silhouette is going to, of course, render a little bit better because there's less visual weight physically for it to be blown up. It still is giving you a bit of an incorrect impression in terms of how large this actually is. So what I like to do is keep my wrist nice and low, and then just tighten up the frame here so that you guys can get still a detailed look, but just add a bit of a truer aspect ratio as to how this may lay on your own wrist. And you guys can see sits really beautifully. Look at that nice oyster style case with the contoured sides, highly polished. Everything flows quite nicely. The tolerances, again, quite impressive on the bracelet and end link where they meet with the case. The dial, I mean, it's just simple, inky, glossy black there. And yeah, it just comes together. Of course, I do think now that you have a little bit of a truer look at it, it might seem a bit small. Great for long sleeve underneath the cuff, where a smaller watch is going to look more proportional. But hey, if you're down in t-shirt and shorts, this might look a little petite and out of place. And guys, I'm not saying smaller watches aren't good. I enjoy smaller watches, and there's some larger watches slash full-size watches that I like a lot. But for me, I'm more of a 39 millimeter wearer. If I had to choose between the two, sweet spot about 38.5 millimeters. But I will say 36 millimeters, I'm coming around when I try watches like this. it does make me question if, hey, if I got the call from the Rolex authorized dealer, if the 36 would be able to scratch the itch or not. But I will say, guys, this is not bad. And again, I know that on camera, certain things are going to look a certain way, but hey, I'm the guy who will have to wear it in real life. So as much as everyone, can argue over how great this looks or doesn't, me as the wearer, if it feels a little bit too small, then I'm probably not going to be as inclined to wear it as much. So with that said, let's actually get this off the wrist, set up for some Lume shots, low light transition, and closing thoughts. All right, let's go ahead and hit the lights here. Oh, yes. That's some serious Lume, guys. So although, of course, they do a great job of channeling a lot of these vintage vibes, they definitely go full on modern when it comes to which variation of the Rolex Explorer that they want to pay homage to in terms of the dial layout with the Lume layout. So I really, really can appreciate that. The blue Lume looks fantastic, but one thing I like to work in, of course, is going to be a bit of a low light transition, because you're always going to be out in the middle of a field enjoying direct sunlight. A lot of times you're going to find yourself coming in and out of buildings, walking underneath the overhangs, or just hanging out underneath the shade of a tree. So what's nice is with these colors, textures, and finishes render like in less than optimal lighting. And you guys can see the high polished portions are quite lustrous. The satin brushed portions have a beautiful bit of just uniformity in terms of the way the light glides over that brushing. So although this is going to be one of the cheaper watches, it's going to have all of these specs, right? A hacking, hand-windable movement, sapphire crystal, solid links and end links, screw pin construction, screw down crown with 100 meters of water resistance. Somehow, even with all of that, they still are going to be one of the nicer executed pieces, which typically can be a bit of a trade-off, right? You kind of pick your poison, and it's one of the things that is almost scary in terms of how impressive they are able to turn out these products at such a low margin. But again, that is one of the advantages where you can take advantage of, scale when you're more of a factory brand that's already producing parts and components for other brands and sub-brands. So that's nice. I can appreciate that. And I think Milifortic have really done a great job here. Of course, all of the design credit and the desirability and everything that goes with this piece, of course, you can't discount the fact that this is, it's a cheaper, more attainable assimilation of something else that is desirable. Intrinsically desirable is going to be that Rolex Explorer. But this is only desirable because it's a facsimile of that original watch. But I will say, again, not everyone is into heritage, lineage, horological significance. Those are things for, typically watch collectors. But there are people who collect products, right? They might collect watches, but they might not be necessarily a connoisseur. You might just want a watch that looks like this. And it's no different than buying a simple fashion watch at a mall or at a department store, where you're buying your clothes because you just want to wear it as an accessory. Now, if you're doing that, this is going to be a great deal because you're not going to have to pay for a big name, and you're going to be getting a ton of features and really great fit and finish to go with that. So depending on where you are in your journey, you may either be into, homages, or you might be totally over them. I will say, guys, as somebody who's dabbled on both sides, I think that this is still a really strong value proposition, even for somebody who might kind of be over the space of homages, mainly because it gives you an idea of that size. And, I'm a lover of the Rolex Explorer. I don't own one. Will I ever own one? I don't know. But this has definitely helped me kind of massage my, expectations a bit more in terms of, what I would think one would wear like if I, ponied up the money. So closing thoughts, guys, classic proportions. The 20 millimeter lug width definitely does help with the more diminutive 36 millimeter diameter by 40 3mm lug-to-lug in terms of the case. So it's nice that it doesn't feel undersized even on larger wrists. In terms of model variants, not applicable at the time of filming, guys. This is kind of the one variation that they do. I'd love to see a dark blue dial eventually. And then, you know, if they start coming up with different types of logos for the sign crown, for the clasp, maybe even for the dial instead of writing out Milifortic, I don't know. I think that would be fun as well. Now, in terms of comparable models, you know, as per the usual, Milifortic are definitely undercutting the competition by a fair margin, while also offering an impressive level of fit and finish that can more than hold its own against watches costing 2 and 3 times as much, guys. Yes, 2 and 3 times as much. When it's under $200, this is still quite competitive, so that's impressive to me. When it comes to just the general bottom line here, guys, at just $185, this classy and well executed Explorer 1 Homage will scratch the itch for many watch enthusiasts who could never, you know, justify trying to pay for the genuine Rolex. Or it could easily even be, it could serve as a placeholder to gauge real world wearability before committing it to the genuine article. So with so many microbrands releasing great Explorer styled watches recently, the market for affordable everyday adventure themed watches is more popular than ever. So if you're somebody who doesn't really care much for the branding or the storytelling aspects of watch collecting, and you just love the general look and the idea of this type of watch, I feel like this little Milifortic might be just what you've been looking for. So with that said, let me know what you all think down in the comments below. If you like the video, please do a like. And if you haven't already, please do hit subscribe for more content just like this. Thanks, guys.